And so that also takes away from the value they are supposed to deliver. Okay? That is on the one hand. Now, the other side to it was simply this, that while we were thinking through this and working to execute, we never took into account an issue I raised at this forum. This should be about 15 years ago when I raised this argument. In fact, to be specific, on the 1st of October 1999, at Channels Television here, I was on a panel to review the Nigerian economy. Toward the end of that conversation, the moderator asked the question, round up your contribution in just 1 minute. I said, okay, all I will say is this, that Nigerians were hardworking, industrious, but there is only one thing I would advise the then President Obasanjo to do, and that is to focus on energy and leave Nigeria to sort out other things. Now, I made that remark here in Channels TV. The following week, the then finance minister made a rejoinder to that and said, the government of Nigeria will not put a single kobo in the power sector, and that everything will be driven by the private sector. It took 5 years, 2004, for the same government to return to what I advised in 1999 here at Channels. Okay? Now, we started that process, as you said, they were suspended it 3 years after. And of course, ultimately, where are we today? I again came at some point, this was about 12 years ago, this same Channels Television, and I raised the point that the government there has started investing in gas-powered generating plants, and that there is a particular location where most of the gas comes from, and that if that particular area is not well managed, and I put it this way then, that someone is so frustrated can go the way of a very crude manner of just carrying a cutlass just to cut a pipe. Of course, he might lose his life in the course of the explosion that follows. But the fellow doesn't care about that. All he wants to achieve is disruption. And I remember mentioning it here, that that means it is not about setting all the power plants. It's about also securing them, which is the most important leg of energy. If you don't secure the energy you generate and distribute, you won't get anywhere.
You don't secure the raw material.
Exactly.
The critical, and that is gas.
Yeah.
You wrote that the power sector is already largely privatized, but the policy can be fine-tuned.
Yeah. When I said there that the policy can be fine-tuned, is to first of all encourage the government not to reverse what had been done, because there's a way the reversal of policies sends the wrong signals, even when it appears to be the wrong policy. Yes, we admit that the wrong policy, you can always reverse it. But when you want to reverse also, there are a lot of arguments you have to put before the people and make it very clear. So my position there was that you don't need to reverse it. It is to mean, look, repurchase what you have sold to these energy companies. Rather than do that, what can we do to strengthen the policy? Now, I suggested something there, and I said, the distribution companies, and that is their complaint today, okay, that they distribute energy, but they don't get the payment for that collected, on the one hand. Now, on the other hand, the consumer says, why should I continue to pay estimated bills? Why don't you give me digital meters so that I pay for what I use? So all I just said there is that, look, there's a way we can deal with this without reversing the policy. Government says, look, we are giving the distribution companies a particular target date to ensure that all consumers are metered. Now, if all consumers are metered, that means every consumer pays for what he or she consumes. Now, that brings now the responsibility for energy conservation and efficiency to the consumer. Then he will realize that he cannot just get out of his house without switching off unnecessary consumers of energy. And then, of course, on the other side, if they do that, the energy companies can easily budget and know how much is coming for them based on energy supplied. But if they now want to make more money, then they will have to look backwards in terms of integration. What do we need to do to ensure that we get sufficient supply in order to deliver to our consumers and therefore get more money out of our investment?
This is a sector that is still in transition.
That's right.
And you believe there's more transformation that could be done.
That's right.
Now, one of the key issues we mentioned over and over and over again, that despite policies, strategies, and actions, funding is very key. Now, from the beginning, we've had the World Bank on our side. So that's good news for Nigeria. Then we're having the African Development Bank also weighing into this and say, look, we're going to invest massively. Do you think the problem of the energy sector in Nigeria is just mostly funding or money, cash.
You know, I see it beyond funding. And I will put it in this context. And that is simply to say, when it comes to competition, and we must remind ourselves as Nigerians about this on an ongoing basis. Nigeria is competing with the rest of the world. Number one, for resources, which we talk about foreign investment we want to come in here, or even from development partners like the World Bank, AFDB that you mentioned. But there is equally the important side to the fact that you have those whose business interest will be adversely affected if there is steady energy supply in Nigeria. And that also has two heads. One is the investor who has a plant somewhere on this globe, produces generators, and therefore finds a ready market in Nigeria if there is energy inefficiency. Okay? He has a viral market here. So to him, therefore, it is not to his business interest if there is an improvement in energy generation and distribution in Nigeria. That's on the one side. I won't mention the name of a particular country, but I know a country that up until recently, about 70% of the power generators that come into Nigeria, either the generator themselves or the engine that powers them is manufactured in that country. So now, to the government of that country, and this, you won't see this in any paper, to the government of that country, it is not in their interest for the energy sector to be sorted out in Nigeria, because that will kill 70% of the market for their product. So if we realize that, then we'll be thinking differently
in terms of
policies and how we execute them.
Very, very interesting, because energy is all about it. But again, we have quite some time to talk about energy within the space. We'll get back to you. Give us about 1 minute. We'll take a break. Dr. Biodun Adedipe, economist and partner at B. Adedipe and Associates, will be back in 1 minute. Stick around. We'll talk about Nigerian economy at 60. The road ahead, looking backwards. Why?